Well, good afternoon and welcome to our new knowledge today. This is a series of workshops that has been going on since 2015 in partnership with the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator, the town of Abington, and Virginia Community Capital, who I represent. My name is Sandy Ratliff. I've been working in economic and community development for about 30 years. Have loved this program. It's been helping a lot of small businesses. We're putting a lot of content out there for businesses to develop their skills and knowledge and hopefully do better and grow in Washington County and throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. Before I turn it over to my co-host today, just a few housekeeping things. We do have everybody's video off and muted. However, we want to hear from you. If you have a specific question for our speaker today, please post those in the Q&A section or chat feature, and we will address those at the end of the session. I am going to now turn it over to Nita Farmer. She's my co-host today. Nita is with the Washington County Chamber of Commerce. If you are not involved in your chamber in your area, I highly recommend that for growing your business, but also for networking. So Nita, it's all yours.
Thank you, Sandy. I'm Nita Farmer. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, and it's my pleasure to introduce Kim G. Brown. She is really an expert, shows expertise in strategic leadership, facilitating proven practices plus processes. She's also the owner of KB TurnKey. Kim, it's so nice to have you today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm looking forward to today's conversation. So as we get started, Nicholas, if you'll pull up our PowerPoint. Today, what we're going to be answering is this question: what does it mean to increase community collaboration, and why does it even matter? And so I will be your facilitator today, and I also have one of my peeps on board, Nicholas Osborne, who is my producer today. And Nicholas, would you like to share just a little bit of something about you?
Yeah, hey, I'm Nicholas Osborne. I work for the IT department at the Higher Education Center here in Abington. I'm glad to be a part of this today.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicholas. All right, let's get started. I'd like to hear from, let's kind of go back one. Who do we have on the line, and who you are, what your work role is, and how long and in what capacity have you been involved, if ever, in community collaboration. So I want to open the floor to our participants to unmute your mic. I'd really even like to see you on camera, and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself from these questions that we have.
The way we have it set up, Kim, they may have to put that in the chat or the Q&A so that we can learn about that. But
that sounds good. So if you all would do that, do the chat, that'd be perfect. Thank you, Sandy. All right. Let's move forward because I want to make sure that we end on time. If you'll forward the slide, Nicholas, please. So here's what we're going to do today. We've got an hour. I'm probably going to trim a little bit of this off. We're going to talk about welcome expectations, what we'd like to see for virtual etiquette when we're online. I'm going to talk a little bit about context, and then we're going to practice, because the best part of any workshop is when your participants actually begin to share their expertise with each other and problem solve and brainstorm. I'm always amazed at what comes out of that. And then we'll have our closing reflections about what we've learned today. Next. So for our agreements, one of our agreements for our virtual meeting space is that we like for people to remain on camera. We do like for you to remain available to be on mic, even though we want you to mute so that there's not a lot of feedback. We want to avoid distractions. Raise your hand. You know, we have a lot of little things here. Raise your hand at the bottom of the screen. And once you're finished sharing, one of the things that we like to do is if you're sharing and you're finished, if you say, "I'm complete," that is a cue for the next person that would like to share. They'll know that they can now share. Also, be mindful of airtime, meaning that if you're like me and you love to talk, kind of step back and listen. I've had to learn that. That was a learned behavior, but it's such a valuable thing to have, is to be able to listen. If you've got a fidget toy or a squeeze ball that you want to kind of play with while we're doing this, that actually increases your brain function when you're trying to think of things. It really does. It's pretty cool. And then, of course, have grace with yourself and the rest of us. We all need some grace during this time. So I'm hoping we can all agree on these things that we have for effective meeting space. Our virtual etiquette, of course, is we want to begin and end on time. And I think we were pretty close today. We won't be having breaks, but I promise you that we will be ending at 1. So somebody call me out, raise your hand, do the wave, whatever you need to do to let me know that we're getting close. We want to be open to and respectful of everyone's perspective, because we all have a different walk of life and we all bring a different perspective. If you're sharing a story, please remember to respect confidentiality. We don't want to mention specific names or persons or places. Stretch yourself. Like I said earlier, if you don't speak, speak up. If you do, like me, then step back and listen to others. And my biggest thing, please explain any acronyms that you may use. And above all that, let's have fun. By the end of today's training, you will be able to describe specific ways in which community agencies, businesses, civic volunteer groups, faith-based entities, child and healthcare providers, governments, law enforcement, local judicial system, the media, parents, youth and young adults, schools, primary, secondary, and graduate, how all of these entities can come together and better support one another on a community level. That is what we want to walk away with today. And with that, we have a poll. And the question is, how confident are you to identifying specific ways that the community can better support one another on a community level? And your choices are: you're very confident, you're confident, you're somewhat confident, or not at all. So feel free to choose one of those choices, and that'll help us know where we are.
Kim, I believe there must have been another thing I was supposed to allow. I mean, I thought it would automatically, but it's not allowing me to click my screen. Maybe others it will, since I'm a host.
Okay, gotcha. So I see that what you got here in the chat box. This is good. Oh, I like that. And I'll go ahead and share in the chat box. Sandy has said, I've worked in the community, economic and small business development for over 30 years. And everything that I do is through collaboration with community, business, and nonprofits. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sandy, for sharing that. So true.
And I think, Nita, that's the big part about the chamber too, is the collaboration. And that's why I said earlier how important it is to be part of a chamber.
All right. So guiding our conversation today are 3 questions. The first question is what? In other words, how would you describe the current state of community collaboration in Washington County and surrounding areas? The so what is, what is the impact of the current state of community collaboration? Is it less than ideal? And then now what? How can we improve our community collaboration? And as Nita said, it's very important and to answer all three of these questions. What, so what, and now what do we want to do? Okay. This is just a small list of collaborative partners, beginning with business, child care service providers, civic volunteer groups, courts and probation, cultural groups and organizations, elementary, secondary, collegiate education, the government, not just at the local level, but also your regional and state level, healthcare providers, human and social services providers, law enforcement, media, parents. As you can see, as Sandy said, everybody. I mean, you have to really be able to connect with everyone in your community. And let's not overlook our senior citizens or our youth and our young adults. We got to make sure that we include all of these individuals in the process. Nicholas, thank you. So to begin the conversation, let me share with you about how I actually got started in this business of mine. 20 years ago, I was hired to be a coordinator of a community collaboration, and they were actually a 501c3. And after I began to work with them and we began to try to do assessments of what's happening in the community, and we need to develop strategies to address those things in the community and involve the audience that we want to create impact in the community. But it was really a challenge. It was like everybody would come to the table, but nobody would really make a decision representing their organization, because we had the school, we had social services, we had the health department, we had a lot of human serving organizations and youth serving organizations, but nobody was empowered to make a decision at the table. And so they would come to the meeting, we'd talk, we'd share, we'd plan. They'd go back to their individual organizations and would not share what was talked about and discussed at the group meeting, and nothing ever happened. You'd come back to the table and I would say, so where are we? How did this go? Or how did that go? And it would be like deers in headlights. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to help organizations understand that they have to work together. And I remember telling my coalition, this was way back in 2000, early 2000s, I said, guys, there's going to come a time where if a grantor receives multiple applications from the same area, nobody's going to get funded. And I said, and that's because nobody talked to each other and submitted a true collaborative application. And so that is how I got started with this, is understanding that every organization and business and community had a role. We just needed to help them to identify what their role is and how we can use it to create community level change. I think that, I'm pretty confident that we've worked in silos for so long that we don't really understand what it means to come out of the silo and just be part of a group that's working on a common effort. So we're still fighting that. It's getting better. I work a lot with those that are applying for grants, and I say, you've got to bring your community partners. They've got to have skin in the game. When you apply for that grant application, you need to think about, the grantor is going to say, what do you have to bring to the table? What resources do you have? What partners do you have? Well, that's who they're going to fund. They're not going to fund someone that doesn't have anyone from the community that says, yeah, we're going to bring this, we're going to be involved in that. You got to have that. So that's why I'm passionate about beginning the conversation of true community level collaboration. Next slide. And this is, let's see. Oh, we've got in the chat pod, it says, Anita says it takes everyone working together for our towns, our county. Look at my little window just went away. And especially this, maintaining our great quality of life. And that is so true. We have a beautiful place that we live. We do want to maintain our quality of life. And now it's time for us to recognize that it's time for our millennials to be in leadership. They're so ready, and we're kind of we can be a barrier sometimes, but I have confidence that we're gonna do this thing. Awesome. And we are gonna maintain and, believe it or not, improve above the great quality of life that we share here in West Southwest. Awesome. Thank you, Nita. All right, so for our activity, let me talk about, would you go to the next slide? Because I want to talk about the 4 things that communities must sustain. The first one, of course, are people. If you don't have people, you don't have members, nothing is going to get done. Nothing is going to get done. Number 2, there needs to be a credible process. It's like earlier, Nita talked about, one of the things our business does is we implement proven practices and processes. And the purpose for that is you can apply any practice and any process to any context. And that's what I love about credible practices and processes. It also needs to be relevant to what the community is concerned about. I mean, if the community is concerned about having clowns on every corner of downtown, but you want to work on having horses over in a stable over on maybe in this corner of town, then it's not going to work because we're not on the same page. And we also have to have those financial and other resources required to do the work. And contrary to popular belief, those financial and other resources exist in your community. It's just we've got to sit down and talk to each other about how we want to utilize the resources that exist. Next slide. That strong volunteer and membership base is very carefully grown. I mean, you really have to be delicate with it. You want to let them know that we have a credible process that we use with our collaboration. And part of that is an involvement agreement and what we're going to bring to the table as a collaborate that will benefit you. And then we're going to ask you as an organization, what can you bring to the table to help us as far as resources? And that's volunteers. It can be space to have a training. It could be space to have an evening family program, skill building program, or the number one complaint I hear from youth and young adults is space where they can just be and be safe. They're like, there's nowhere for us to be and be safe. So we need that. We need those spaces. We also want to identify what's really causing it. And sometimes it's the lack of something like safe spaces for youth and young adults to be, or it may be a hazardous something like substance use or, other things that are just risk factors that cause chaos within our communities. So a strong volunteer membership base can financially contribute, and they can also help you raise financial and other resources that already exist, because it takes all of these things to quote unquote, do the work. You've got to have that. Next slide, please. Again, you want to orient your new members about what the collaborative process is. And here's the biggie. You've got to identify roles and tasks, and it has to be written. Actually, it should be part of the organization's bylaws or governance documents. It outlines what your role is. It also has resources that have that says they will be contributed by your community. You need that written down. It needs to be also with your bylaws. And always want to, especially with your partners and your volunteers, make sure that there's something in it for them. And one of the things that is in it for our volunteers and members is community level change, but also make sure that there's more specifics that is in it for them. It's got to be a win-win. And the only way you're going to know that is sit down and have a one-on-one conversation. And so we want to provide those opportunities where the whole community, including your youth and your young adults, need to be engaged and involved. If you want to know what's going on, just ask the youth and the young adults. They'll be more than happy to tell you what's happening. And what I love about them too is they already have ideas about what they can do and what the community can do together to do the work. And it is all about the 6 R's. I can't say this enough. It's about relationship, roles, respect, recognition, rewards, and results. And I've already talked a lot about those, relationships and how it's important to build those relationships. A lot of that can be found in your bylaws. You can put role descriptions within the bylaws, and your bylaws are your friend. I know a lot of people kind of run away from them and they're like, oh, it's kind of a scary thing, but no, bylaws are really, really your friend. When you're having a contentious conversation in a meeting and can't seem to come to a decision, if you pull out those bylaws and read about, okay, this is how we make decisions, all of a sudden, everything starts to go well. I love bylaws. And I remember introducing a group out in Goochland, Powhatan County, and introducing them to bylaws. And they didn't have any at the time, and it was a little bit of chaos going on. And I never will forget, it was like I gave them the bylaws and I met them at a conference that we were having, one of our national conferences. And I said, hey, and one of the ladies came up and said, you will not believe what a difference those bylaws made for our collaborative. And I'm like, they really are your friend. It is so true. So true. So definitely got to have those bylaws in place. That's one of the things. The other, of course, the bylaws will talk about roles. And then, ask members how they want to be involved. And that's where that involvement agreement comes in, is you say, how do you want to be involved? Give them some examples of what would be helpful. And now you're starting to build your resource base. You can flip through those resource pages where your members and volunteers have said, we can do this. And now you could put an event together very easily because you've got all the things you need documented and who has it. And I will, another example, one of our groups back in the day was a farmer. He wanted to be part of the process. And the grant that we were applying for was to increase fresh produce for our students in schools and at home. And so he signed an agreement and he said, well, I'm gonna let you know. He says, I probably won't be at a single meeting because I'm going to be out in the fields making sure that you have that fresh produce. He said, but if you need anything, pick up the phone, call me. I'll make sure you have what you need. And that was awesome to hear. Right away, he said, I can't come to the meeting, but I want to be able to be a resource. And sure enough, he showed up several times for a lot of things that we had and provided a lot of resources for us to do some community events. So it's important. And also just respecting your volunteers. Something as simple as a name tag. My favorite ones are the table tents that you sit in front of you when you come to the table. You sit a little table tent up and it has your name and the organization that you're with. And that helps you to get to know each other. So that's important. That's respectful. And then you can always call them by name, which is awesome. The other, of course, is results. You want to make sure that you have results. And the only way to have results is to evaluate and collect data and do it over time. Like you can, if you do a community survey every year, you can measure change in their perception and their attitudes about what's happening in the community. And there's also a young adult survey that's very helpful to put out as well. You know, the schools do youth surveys. So all of those surveys are happening over time, and you can look back and see trends. And that's important because you want to reward positive trends that have taken place. And then you want to reassess if there's any negative trends happening and what does the group need to do to address that trend. Also, recognizing the members is important, like remembering when their birthday is, or maybe their favorite dessert. So maybe, one of your monthly meetings, you might have a little cupcake with a candle and sing happy birthday to that member that's probably going to be very pleasantly surprised that you remembered. Or just anything that they do, if they do something amazing, if one of the members puts an article in the newspaper, or like we have here locally, our daytime TV, where you can actually go on and share, a story about what's happening in the community. There's lots of ways to do it. Of course, those nonprofit ads that you can do on the radio with the NPR and your local radio stations, they have in-kind time that they can give you for getting information out in your community. So I encourage you all to do that. Reach out, and then of course reward your community members. We would always have an annual event with the group that I worked with back in the early 2000s. And I would always give out awards for those that were active, and special recognition, and just coming to meetings, just showing up. It makes a difference. And it just makes a difference when you are recognized. So that's important. Now, the activity that I wanted us to do is actually, could you go to the next slide? I think we put that on the next slide. Is that there's the chair of a local community services group that asks you to, they want you to come to their annual meeting to clarify how the community serves those with substance use disorders. So, considering your potential audience, what would be meaningful for you to say, or who needs to be recruited if there isn't anyone at the table? Who do we need to recruit as the expert of this substance use disorders that would be meaningful, that they could put that speech together? And what would you cover in your presentation group? How do you frame the content? And what suggestions for their involvement would you propose? Because that's really the goal. Even though they've invited you, the goal is really to get them involved in what we are proposing. So that is our activity. And what we would normally do during that activity, can you back up, Nicholas, is we would do breakout rooms. And in the breakout rooms, you would talk with each other about what would be meaningful for us to say to this local community service group. Do any of us have any expertise in substance use disorders? Do any of us know someone who has the expertise? And if so, would you mind to reach out to that person and have them and ask if they would be willing to do our presentation for us? So it's like not only are you helping them to see, oh, wait a minute, we don't really have this person at the table, but hey, here's a great opportunity for us to invite them to the table and get a new partner. So it's like a win-win. It's a win-win situation. So that's what we would do in our breakout rooms. I would have you kind of choose a chair for your breakout room group. And I'd say choose someone to take notes, and you would take notes of for each of the questions. You just move through each of those questions and take notes. And then we would bring you back into the full room, and I would say, okay, who's your spokesperson? And would you please share what your group shared with each other? And I'm always amazed at what comes out of groups. I love to hear the different perspectives. I'm the expert in the practices and the processes, but you are the expert of the content. And that is what I love. All right, so our next slide is our poll, which we actually did earlier. So Nicholas, can you move to that next slide? Again, our objective was by the end of this sorry. Let me read the objective. Sorry. All me. By the end of this training and the activity that you would actually participate in that discussion with each other and answering those questions from that scenario, I am confident that you are now able to say specific ways in which community agencies, businesses, civic volunteer groups, faith-based entities, child and healthcare providers, governments, law enforcement, local judicial systems, media, parents, youth, young adults, and schools can better support one another on a community level. I'm confident that that activity and the conversation that you have will empower you to go forth and create community level change by engaging every sector in your community that you can, every young adult that you can grab, and every youth, because the youth and the young adults are in the know. And if we want to know, we got to ask them because they are in the know and they don't mind telling you and they don't mind giving you ideas because they do have some great ideas. And with that, I want to say, let's say, go to the poll page, which we would do that poll question and ask them how confident they are of the specific ways in which they can create. Yeah. They can better support one another. And you would say very confident, somewhat, or not at all. And I'm confident that everybody's going to choose. I am very confident because that was a great conversation that we had. All right, next slide. So, what I want to say is thank you for joining us today. And if you weren't able to join us today and you're viewing this view online, I want to say thank you for taking the time to come and look at this presentation. And even though we didn't get an opportunity to do our group activity, I'm hoping that you will take that question, that activity within the slide, and you will take that back to your community and implement it. And what I would love is to hear about that. I would love for you to hear, to tell me. And I'm actually, I just realized I didn't put my contact information on in the PowerPoint. So I'm going to go in the chat, maybe. Okay, maybe I'm not, maybe I am. But let me tell you what my email is. It's KBrown@TurnKeyKB.org. So K Brown at TurnKeyKB.org. And if you want to visit our website, which I think is pretty cool, it's got a blog and a lot of stuff that we're doing, a lot of case studies. You would find us at TurnKeyKB.org. And Nicholas, I'd love to hear from you. Would you share some comments for the group?
I think it was a great meeting. Did a great job. Glad to see everybody come together.
Hey, Kim, I've got a question, and you've been doing this for a while. Let's say that there is an organization that is trying to bring the community together. Can you give some, 2 or 3 of the best tips when you're having problems getting people engaged and getting involved instead of talking about it and complaining about it? Be part of the change. I know I opened up a can of worms, but there could be somebody that's going to be viewing this that are having that, and that's the same in not any even in your community. But I would consider this as part of a business. Maybe you're part of a team and at your work or a division that is having trouble coming together. That they could get a few pointers that could help.
Absolutely. I get this question all the time, because I do work with a lot of organizations getting started. So the first thing I tell them is they have to have a vision. The people want to know, where are you going? They want to know, what is the out, where are we going? So that's the first thing that needs to happen. The second, what is your mission? And sometimes there's more than one. So your mission is how you're going to get where you want to be. And that's where strategies come in. You say your mission, then now you've got strategies. What strategies do we need to implement in order to fulfill the mission and move us toward our vision? And beneath those strategies are activities. And what I have come to learn over the years, if it's not written, it doesn't happen. So, and that's why, a lot of meetings, you come, you talk, but nothing's ever written and nothing's ever done. And you come back and you talk and you talk and you talk and you talk. And you just, it's just like it's a revolving door. And so number one, for a group, there needs to be some type of decision-making document of how we make decisions as a group. There needs to be roles identified, and they don't have to be fancy. You just need someone who can chair the meeting. You need someone who can take minutes. And you do need a coordinator, because someone needs to develop the agenda. Someone needs to get the word out. And that should be a paid position. And it may be that one of the organizations could provide one of their staff for a percentage of time to attend the coalition meeting and take those notes for you and send out those email invites and reminders. So it's really, it starts out with that sit down, let's have a cup of coffee, let's have a conversation, let me tell you what we do. And matter of fact, I did research on you and I found that you have this, and this would be such an added benefit to our group, because, this is how it would work. And how does that sound to you? Is that something that you could do for us? And here's what we're going to do for you. So it's pretty cool. So I hope that helped.
It did, and I'm sure Nita has similar struggles from the chamber.
Sure. I was getting ready to say, what a great presentation. We've always have new board members coming on, and Kim, I can't thank you enough for everything that you talked about. It's going to help us just talking about, our vision, our mission, and just look forward to you and maybe asking for your expertise later on different things that we're wanting to fulfill for the chamber and moving forward.
It would be an honor. I love facilitating strategic planning. I love it.
Just a quick question. Are you on Virginia's procurement system, the EVA system, as a registered vendor? Okay. Because there's sometimes agencies are looking for folks with your expertise. So that's good to know.
Thank you. And I'm available. It's my passion. I love to help people be successful. I love it. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it was great to have you. The only way we could do this is with professionals like yourself volunteering your time, because we're not charging for this. And that's part of the community. You're trying to help our businesses and nonprofits operate better and have a stronger team, and that's important. So just to let people know that I will be sharing Kim's slides and we will be uploading the video to the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator's Facebook page and to our YouTube channel, New Knowledge. I will say that there's probably 125 to 130 videos that we have done over the past, since 2015, of professional development. Like last week, we had a session on, or 2 weeks ago, we had a session on QuickBooks. What's the difference between the online and the computer version? And we've just been offering a lot, but we could not do this program if it wasn't for folks like Kim and other entrepreneurs and business owners in the region that donate their time and expertise.
I would just like to say too, that Kim has been a member of our chamber, and we're so thankful to have her and be able to refer her. She's also recently gone through our leadership program.
Great.
Kim,
Great.
Still got plans for
yeah,
that.
Hey, I
Oh,
hear
good.
I think I hear a
Kathy Lowe, yes, Kathy Lowe here, Kim. I had somebody in my office and logged on late, but it's nice I haven't met you in person, but it's certainly nice to see you. And it was a great presentation. I believe I'm going to review.
Oh,
This is going to be one I'm going to review again.
thank you so much. I've heard lots of good things about you. We'll have to get together.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
we can tell you other stories too.
Yeah.
But thanks again. Just want to put a plug into our final session of this year's schedule is going to be held on June the 2nd. It's on video development, and video is becoming so important to promote your business and connect with your customers. And Carrie Kennedy with Starscape Media will be leading that session on June the 2nd. So I hope you'll make plans to join us. And again, they're available online, today's and others. So Kim, thanks again. Nita, do you have anything you want to say before we end?
Hey, just want to say, we're just getting ready for another ribbon cutting this afternoon. So the chamber's moving ahead. And then also we'll have our first breakfast starting on June the 17th. So please just look for our newsletter and different events as they become available. And as always, we appreciate all of you and look forward to seeing you. Thank you. Thank you, Kim.
To my producer, Nicholas.
Hey, good job,
Yes.
Nicholas. We couldn't do it without you. You're the wind beneath our wings.
Thank you,
problem.
Nicholas.
Everybody have a great day. Make a blessed one and impact somebody's life today.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.